This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
My fellow cooking with Griefians, I'm addressing you at a dark time. Russian tanks are in Ukraine, this may be the prelude to World War III, and Britain still does not have Red Lobster and its endless shrimp. Humanity's only hope now rests with two of Earth's finest morons, here to bring you weird facts about history, science, and more. It is with a heavy heart that I present to you episode 64 of Cooking with Grief. Well, thank you.
Very strong accent work.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's all thanks to President Foghorn Leghorn there for agreeing to do the intro.
You know, as someone who, you know, particularly, you know, in our sort of teenage years, was compared almost exclusively to resembling Barack Obama. Interesting that you went with the only American accent we can do.
Oh yeah, that's it. I was practicing this a few times, so I was originally trying to go for like more of a nasally Bill Clinton, like my fellow cooking with Griefians, but I couldn't quite get the like thing. And then I thought I could do like Barack Obama, like America, but the only word I can say in a Barack Obama, like, because it's not Barack Obama, it's Barack Obama. The only word I can say is America. And you can't you can't just keep going America.
Yeah, it's not a great, you know, but yeah,
I tried to read it in that, and it just didn't work.
He's got a weird intonation with pauses and stresses in the weirdest places.
Well, I mean, that just sounds like William Shatner.
Oh
no, there's a great
the white Barack Obama, if you will.
Not to go too off topic too quickly, but Trevor Noah does a really good bit, like on his stand-up, about how he likes to imagine that Nelson Mandela had to teach Barack Obama how to speak like the first black president. He's like, no, you need to do it with feeling, not just America. It has to be America. It's like, America. No. Like this. America. America. Yes.
You have to say every word as though it was the most important one you have ever said.
Yeah. It's such a good bit.
My fellow Americans, no, slower. My fellow Americans, even slower.
Oh, that just, I mean, so that we don't just end up doing Trevor's
someone else's material. Yeah.
I think I've told you this, but for some reason I was just doing Nelson Mandela impressions to myself one day, and I realised that
of course you were.
I realised that the lyrics to Breakfast at Tiffany's by Deep Blue Something works like one of his speeches. It's like, you may say we have nothing in common. No common ground to start from.
Oh, we've gone Indian.
What I say? What about? Breakfast at Tiffany's. Anyway, besides our stellar voice work, we are available for any
not for any of that,
animations.
we're not. If they, I mean, that's the thing, is we've already got white casting. If they hire me to do Nelson Mandela,
I like to think that we always come as like a double act as well. So even if you just have one part, we will both do it. We will both play Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, equally badly. Yeah.
Anyway, besides being a podcast of bad impressions, what we actually are is a comedy podcast about fun facts, weird facts, interesting facts about anything to do with science, history, current events, past events, which I guess is history, art.
Good call. Why have we never done future events?
Oh, that's science.
Oh yeah, true, yeah.
There we go. We've now basically managed to categorize absolutely everything as either history or science. If it happened in the past, history. Happening in the future, science.
Present day, speculation.
Yes. There we go. We have covered
politics. Present day is politics.
There we go. Yeah. So I guess, well, actually no, sorry. And the format of the podcast, need to remember that bit, is Chris has. I assume you know who we are at this stage. This is episode 64. I mean, we've not introduced each other, but I mean, if you don't know, just listen to an earlier episode. We're both called Chris. There you go. Yeah, we've each brought one topic each. Neither of us have heard the other's topic, so we will be equally surprised as you, the listener. And I think without further ado, Chris, what's your first topic? And feel free to use an accent or not. Your choice. Just go where you want.
So for my first topic, appropriately enough, you've managed to set me up perfectly talking about accents and languages and whatnot. I'm going to be talking about phrases in modern European languages. You know, you're pretty well travelled. But I think we said before about there's the stereotype of the Englishman abroad who just insists on speaking English just louder and more violently. But I think we both agree that if you're going to be the guest in another country, the least you can do is learn a few key phrases, you know, hello, please, thank you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, like you say, I always think you should try and learn yes, no, please, thank you, hello, goodbye, wherever you travel.
Yeah.
Because you try that, and then without fail, whoever you're speaking to will just speak much better English, probably than you.
Yep, 100%.
But yeah, much better than you'll speak their language, just because, like I say, English had that double whammy of the British Empire immediately followed by American supremacy.
Yeah.
So there's just been 300 straight years where it's been the most valuable language to learn.
Yeah, and it means that we incorrectly think that we don't have to try when we absolutely should try just a little bit, because if you learn...
Yeah, if you try a little bit, and then it's always I'm not being a dick, I'm trying, and then they usually just be like, don't worry, I'm just going to do all the talking for us, because...
Yeah, you say bonjour, they reply in French, you smile, and they say, what do you want to order? And you go, oh, thank God.
My French is, it's at the level where I can get, the first... if the interaction goes exactly as I imagine it will in my head, I'm all right. But if they ask any sort of questions that weren't, pre-planned in my... I ordered a sandwich once in France... And, so the initial order in it, they asked what I wanted, I chose, everything, paid. And then when she came to give me a sandwich, or just before she gave it me, she asked if I wanted it cut in half. But I had no idea what she was I eventually found out. She was I think she had to mime it. Because, I wasn't expecting that question, hadn't prepared for it, had no idea what the fuck, what she was saying.
Yeah, so someone sent me this topic, and it's a map of Europe, and on the overlay all the different ways in those languages of that language says I don't give a fuck.
Oh, okay.
So obviously every language will have your basic, I don't give a shit or I don't give a fuck. So these are specific idioms. Idioms.
Let's go with idioms.
Yeah, idioms of various European languages. So I will give you the English translation first and see if you can guess from what language it comes. And then if you don't get that, I'll give you a clue in form of the phrase in its native language, hence my series of bad impressions, and then we'll see. So you've just got to think what sort of culture would inhabit these idioms, I guess. So we'll start off with I beat my balls. These all mean I don't give a fuck, by the way. So,
okay.
So I don't
beat my balls.
I beat my. I did an accent then. I beat my balls.
Is that accent a clue?
It depends how good it is. If it's a good accent, then yes. If not, it's
French.
It's a herring rouge. That is. I don't know why you would beat your own balls to show your disinterest. Je bats mes couilles. And there's also another French saying, again to mean, but it might be the most French phrase ever. also to mean I don't give a fuck. I'm painting my balls with a brush of indifference, and it's like it's rude but poetic. It's
artsy.
Yeah, it's a Gallic shrug, but with mention of nads. It's
Go on. Do you have that one in French?
Oh, I don't. I'm afraid. I just saw it as a bonus, but I could look it up and insert the audio here. Je m'en baptision les cuits avec le pinceau de longue différence. So how about I care a cucumber?
Care a cucumber. Oh, I reckon that's like Greek.
Not far off. I'll give you the.
Are we Balkans? Are we like that area?
No, we're not too far off. So the in its language it's me importa un pepino.
What is it, Italian?
No, but close. It's Spanish.
Maltese. Oh, Spanish. I'm well off.
Maybe my Spanish accent. Me importa un pepino. I can't speak Spanish, so maybe I put too much of an Italian flair on it. But
who knows?
How about it hurts me in the lighthouse?
Oddly specific. I don't know why I'm getting a Scandinavian vibe from this one. I'm feeling like
that would make.
I'm going to say Danish.
Right. Okay. I mean, I do like the logic, but like that you're sort of working out. But it's Bulgarian, I'm afraid, and the phrase is which are they not a landlocked?
No, they're not landlocked, but they're on the Black Sea, which I thought would be like. Well, I mean, I don't know. I've never been to the Black Sea, but just because it's like quite far south, it's like an inland. It's not like a proper sea. It's basically a lake with like.
Lighthouse was sort of slang for penis.
Penis, yeah, I can get that.
The tower-like structure of the shaft
and the massive light on top of it. Anyway, go on. What is it in? I want to hear you struggle with this because I know you can't speak Bulgarian.
Maybe I've been doing Duolingo. You don't know. Boli minefara is. I wrote the phonetic pronunciation off a Google Translate thing, so I
say because it's in
Bali.
It's in Cyrillic, so
yeah.
I don't know if you can read Cyrillic,
but I can read enough Greek that I can make a good guess.
That's all right then.
So actually, okay. So how about I don't give a fuck. It can oxidize on my ass.
Oxidize. I mean that's
yeah. That's quite a scientific.
Technical.
Yeah.
Oxidize on my ass. I'm gonna go. I reckon.
I love how seriously you're taking
this. Would it be too stereotypical to go Germanic?
It is. It's not German, but it is a Germanic root language. I will give you that.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Switzerland.
Ooh, so close. I'll give you it in the language. Het kan oxideren op min anus.
Is it Dutch?
It is Bob on Dutch.
Oh, that was quite a good accent there. Like, I mean, I say that as if I know what Dutch accent
you are.
like.
Yeah, like no offense, but your praise means nothing.
Yeah, but from having visited the Netherlands, if that sounded like the Tannoy announcement on the train.
Madame und Herren, het kan oxideren op min anus. Yeah.
See? It sounds good enough to me.
Give me more news of the capelin, and the capelin is a small fish, a small oily fish.
Oh, I'm going Norwegian.
Very close.
Iceland.
Yeah. It's Iceland. It's like give me more news of the small fish.
As soon as she said oily fish, I was like, oh, that's got to be Scandinavian.
Yeah.
Or Nordic.
So
that's got to be somebody like a nation that is just famous for fishing in cold waters.
Yeah, but I just love that
wearing tasteful knitwear and then like yellow overalls.
But I just love obviously these idioms come from somewhere, but someone's telling you a story and you just look out to the sea in your tasteful knitwear and you're like, oh yeah, tell me more news of the tiny fish. And you're like, okay, no need to. Okay, I'm gonna attempt Icelandic. Gesimir frikari fretir afloveni.
Okay.
Went a bit Italian.
I think Icelandic's supposed to be one of the hardest European languages to learn.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Because it's like old Nordic.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, apparently all, like, the other Nordic languages, like Danish and Swedish and Norwegian, they can all basically understand each other, apparently.
Yeah.
Like, apparently, if, like, a Danish person and a Swedish person, they can have a conversation in their own languages and they both roughly know what's going on. Oh, apparently, that happened in English as well. I watched something once about how Old English, being Germanic, was close enough to Old Norse that when, like, the Vikings came over, they were able to... One of the reasons why they settled in England and sort of liked it was because they basically had almost no trouble, like, trading.
Oh, right.
Because straight away they could say, like, the word for... like, the language structure was different or whatever, like, sentences and stuff, but, like, enough of the vocabulary was similar enough that if somebody was trying to sell you a horse, you knew what they meant.
I guess the horse itself was a bit of a clue, and you point to it and you go, and you go, horsa, and then the other person goes, horse, and you go, yes, horse.
Probably the same. Yeah. But then apparently that made English drift, and it became less... Well, it caused it to drift away from German and more Norse, and then that's how... And then obviously the French came and buggered everything up again, and... here we are.
Yeah, with our Mongol language. And I guess that makes sense if Iceland has been not like cut off, but they've kept themselves to themselves largely, then there won't be that influence of different languages to sort of change it. So it's probably...
Yeah.
I reckon modern Icelandic's really, really close to, say, like, old Icelandic in a way that,
Yeah.
you know, it's probably not changed much, but what do I know?
For what I know, that's broadly true. You know, it's changed because it's been 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, compared to like other languages,
Yeah.
they've it's less.
Yeah, because they've not been invaded.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. How about this one? I don't give a frostbitten onion.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna go. So frostbitten makes me think like Northern Europe. Onion makes me think Poland.
Not far off. I don't know if you'll get it from the clue of the language itself. Nuda or chapa de grata.
Nah, unless it's literally one like I just say Lithuania, just because it's next door.
Very close. It's Romanian.
Ah, okay.
I don't know. Like it's surprisingly like romantic in terms of not like
Yeah.
an amorous, but like it's more like a romance language than I was expecting.
No, that's a weird thing about Romanian. Again, I don't know enough about it, but they're called Romania because they harken back to the old Roman Empire. And yeah, for some reason, I don't know why. Like, I say I don't know why, because obviously the Roman Empire covered all of that area. But I don't know why Romanian specifically, compared to like neighbouring languages, retained much more of its Latin roots than... Like, if you look at a lot of the words, I don't know how they sound in comparison, because sometimes when you look at them and then you hear them said out loud and you're like, all right, that doesn't sound anything like I was expecting. And I don't know enough Romanian. But if you look at a lot of the words like and compare them to Spanish or Italian, you can sort of see they all come from the same root in a way that, like, I don't know, the Hungarian maybe wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. So, so you look at the word, like, for frostbitten, degrata, unless you, like... The degrata, if you put it with a Manc accent, but degrata, it could easily be Italian.
I don't know enough about it and why Romania specifically, harkened back to Rome and like obviously the name and everything more than its neighbours.
Yeah, it's sort of a Romance language, like surrounded by Germanic languages, which is interesting.
Yeah, and Slavic.
Yeah,
I guess from the other side.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened. Oh, also, just on languages, apparently Germany is called a different thing in pretty much every language based on which tribe was bumped into first. So we call them the Germans because the Romans bumped into the Germanians or something like that, where the French call it the Allemands because they bumped into the Allemans first, and the Polish or somebody call them like...
the Teutons.
Yeah, something like that. So that's why every country in Europe basically has a different name. And then there's apparently one country, I'm not sure which, they call them the Mutes because basically they could speak to every tribe, and then they bumped into these Germans and they didn't understand the word they were saying, so they just called them like the Mutes because they couldn't speak to them. And so like eventually their name stuck, and like it's called like the Mute Country or something like that, even in the modern...
I used to be a mute. I got better.
There's this thing as well with Slavic language. Again, this is all vague and off the top of my head from what I've read, but like somebody worked something out about where the Slavic languages came from based on the words they had for trees, and they could work out like where the languages diverged and where they all kept the same, and then they were able to work out
that's interesting.
they all came from this area because they all had the same word for this type of tree that only grew there. But then when they went to, say, the Poles got to their word for tree, the type of trees there was different because, something like that. But yeah, they're able to work out, like, all right, so they must have all come from here.
Like linguistic sort of shibboleth sort of thing.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's interesting.
Honestly, I find languages fascinating. I just don't understand enough about them to sort of comment. But I do find it really interesting how, like, history of a country and then, like, a people massively impacts their language.
That's why I picked this topic. It's on the surface, it seems like a silly, just a lot of different ways to say I don't give a fuck in different languages. But in terms of exploring the culture relating to language, you take, like, I don't give a frostbitten onion. You immediately work out, okay, so it's probably not like a hot country. You're unlikely to have that phrase in Spanish, but because these idioms come from everyday life, you reflect what's around you.
Yeah.
Is that because I was thinking about a few episodes ago, you were talking about the relationship between countries, how regularly a country has natural disasters and how violent their deities are.
Yeah.
Because, and your example was the Nile floods, but not like in a sort of typhoon destructive way, in a sort of way that makes the soil incredibly fertile. So all the Egyptian gods are about fertility and, like crops and stuff like that.
And apparently it was quite a sort of, not transactional, but sort of, you knew where you stood. If you did this, the gods would do that type thing, rather than like some other places that were more chaotic. And it's sort of like, you do this, the gods might take pity on you, or they might kill you for sport anyway. Like,
yeah, or it's all about appeasing the gods. So, like, you make offerings to, sort of old Japanese spirits or, deities and stuff like that to protect you from all the tsunamis and stuff.
Which is why I always wonder what the hell was going on in, like, Central and South America, where they did all, like, the human sacrifice. Apparently there's, like, a god, an Aztec god, which you, would sacrifice, like, the tears of children. So, like, not only did you have to sacrifice children, I think it might have been a rain god. Can't remember. I was reading about it. Not only did you sacrifice children to this god, but like they were terrorized and stuff beforehand to make them as fearful as possible. So it's like you're torturing and then executing a child, and in your like world, it's the only way to keep like the sun rising or the rain coming. Like, how violent was your world where this seemed like the only way out? Like, this was the better than the option.
Yeah, I mean, who are we to judge? But I guess if you live in a rainforest, you need rain.
Well, it's just a forest.
Yeah, true. So back to these phrases. I'll do a few more just so we don't go too long. I'll pick a couple more of my favourites. It interests me as much as a kilogram of shit.
I'm gonna go Italian.
It's actually Finnish.
Oh, go on, try Finnish, because Finnish is another one of those.
It's meant to be one of the hardest languages in the world.
Yeah. It's like old. It's like completely different to every other language around it.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it's bordered by Russia and then like Norway and Sweden, so it's like it's nothing like those languages. It's
a language born out of living in the dark the whole year. Yeah. So at an attempt, se kinosta mina uhta paljon kuin kilopashka.
Okay, I have no idea how to read that.
No, let's go with flawless. I'll do a couple more. What country for I don't give a fuck says I've got flowers on my dick and bees all around?
I'm gonna go with Malta.
Not far off. It's Greek. Loludia stopoli mukai melisi trigoro.
That was gonna be my other one. I was torn between like Malta and Greece, and I just went for the more like obscure one for some reason. It just seemed like it would be a hot country, somewhere where, being covered in bees and flowers, like up here in northern England, we get flowers for 1 week a year.
Yeah, so it's a remarkable thing. That's the thing, is like, for that to be synonymous with like, I have no interest in this whatsoever, is that I'm surrounded by bees and my dick's covered in flowers, and it's like, yeah, fucking Tuesday, mate. This is my favourite one. It bothers me as much as a cardboard duck.
Does that happen often?
Well, clearly enough to be synonymous with being uninterested.
Oh, right. Cardboard duck. Right, I'm going to go.
Yeah, good luck getting clues with this one.
I'm going Scandinavian again. I'm going Belgium. No, not Belgium. Why did I say Belgium? It's not even Scandinavian. Denmark.
In the final hour, you've got it bang on. It's
Is it Denmark?
yeah, det genererer mig som en pappand. Depending on how I said it, it bothers me as much as a cardboard duck. but
Nailed it.
But it's the idea of looking out and your neighbours put out a load of cardboard ducks, and you're like, I have no opinion on that.
Honestly, my logic was, I've been to Copenhagen recently. Lovely city. Honestly, it just seems like an absolutely lovely city.
Cardboard ducks as far as the eye can see.
Well, no, I just thought it's on like the water. It's got like a waterfront. I just thought, I bet if you stood there, you'd probably think about ducks quite a lot. Or maybe you thought cardboard ducks. And there you go. That was my logic.
And it paid off. Yeah.
Again, I thought it had to be somewhere cold, because thinking about it, did they have ducks in hot? You don't really see ducks in hot countries. Like, I can't imagine being in Spain or somewhere and seeing ducks. They seem like quite like a cold weather thing.
Yeah, throwing paella in the lake. But yeah, just
that was fun. That
I enjoyed looking some of these up. As a general rule, the Romance languages tend to say it with things relating to sex, and Germanic languages tend to say things relating to food.
Just some broad sort of stereotypes there.
Well, no, just as a general, so like, you know, some of the more...
No, but I mean, like, you could draw some broad stereotypes.
I see, right, yeah.
Southern Europeans versus Northern Europeans there.
Yeah, if it's hot, you don't need to eat as much, and you can fuck all the time. And, you know, in Germans, you know, you've got to stay warm, so you buy a fire. And so like, some of the ones I didn't pick are sort of more obvious ones. So, like, in Hungary, you say, like, oh, I don't give a blood sausage about that. In Germany, you can say something very similar. But, yeah. So go forth, listeners, and impress your foreign friends with various ways. Yeah, with ways to show your complete indifference. So with flowers on our dicks and bees all around, I will hand over to Chris for our second topic of the episode.
All right, Chris. Well, for my topic, I'm going to talk to you about dogs. So you know how today we have, and there's sometimes a bit of controversy because some of the most popular dogs are those ones that, I mean, I'm really not a fan of. Like, I think they're rubbish. Things like pugs or...
Rubbish. Not even like...
They're just shit dogs, aren't they? Like, any dog that, like, you know, can't even breathe because its face is so flat.
Yeah.
I think some country actually recently banned breeding dogs with flat faces, like bulldogs and pugs.
There's a French bulldog breeder in France who's been purposefully breeding them back to how they used to be, so they haven't got breeding problems.
Okay.
And it's been, like, massively successful.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. Yeah, because there's just loads of weird dogs breeds out there. Because I love dogs that are sort of like, I like big stupid dogs. You know, like some people like big dogs because they want to feel like, or like manly, or, you know, like to have like a big aggressive like thing.
Yeah, dog. A Rottweiler or
yeah. Like, I love big dogs that should be scary, but they're so stupid and just docile and dopey. Like, my mum and dad have a rescue dog. And he's they don't even know what breed he is. He's like, you know, he's a mongrel. And he's, but they do think he's part, like, the rescue home thing they're going from thinks he was, like, part, I think it's Rhodesian fighting dog or something, which is some dog originally bred to, like, hunt lions or something in Africa. But this dog is just so stupid and just, like, he just wants to sit down on your leg, even though he's far too big to sit down on a human being, and then just lie there. That's my type of dog. Looks the part, isn't the part. Like,
yeah.
Just give me a rubbish dog. Just wanted to talk about old dog breeds, and then specifically a type of dog called the turnspit dog. Modern dog breeds is a fairly recent phenomenon. I think in the 1800s, like, you know, the Kennel Club, who do like crufts and dog shows in England, and then I think they've got, you know, international equivalents or whatever, basically started writing up things to say, like, certain dogs should look a certain way. So, like you said about bulldogs and that French breeder, whatever, bulldogs used to look a certain way, And then the Kennel Club started saying, like, oh, a flat nose is the most important part of a bulldog. And so breeders started breeding them until they got flatter and flatter and flatter faces until they became, they can't breathe. But before that, dog breeds were sort of much more loose. So there's always been loads of genetic variations in dogs. I think I learned fairly recently is one big difference between dogs and wolves is that dogs have eyebrows and wolves don't. And they think that's one of the things that, like, because they have eyebrows that, like, sort of communicate their expression, or at least humans project things onto them. I think that's why we sort of, like, adopted dogs in the first place, because we felt like more of a connection.
If you told a dog with a sort of suggestive joke and it raised its eyebrows as if to go, oh, you go,
exactly,
Barney,
and that
Barney
just wasn't working with wolves. They were just like terrible. They were terrible comedic foils. So
yeah, I like my pets to be the straight man in my comedy duos.
Yeah, back in before like the Kennel Club and that type of thing, dog breeds were more vague, and they were usually like to do with the job of the dog. So like sheepdogs. And you'd breed a sheepdog and you wouldn't be too fussed about exactly what it looked like as long as it did its job. But, so that's why, is it border collies or what we think of when we say sheepdogs, is it? Like, they would have been of that stock, but like less precise than they sort of became in terms of how they needed to look and what size and blah, blah, blah. But they would have generally been that thing, that type of dog, but bred for the fact that they were good at heeding commands and were fast enough to get after. And then you'd have guard dogs or hunting dogs, which would be like a hound of some description. There's a whole thing about people trying to decipher old dog breeds. Umbrian hounds are mentioned in like Roman sources and stuff like that, but nobody, exactly what they were is sort of a bit of a mystery, because obviously you can only tell so much from
guard dog, open brackets, generic.
Yeah. So basically, dog breeds, quote unquote, were based on their job. So, hunting dog, sheepdog, guard dog, etc. And there's a type of dog which is now extinct called the turnspit dog. And this dog was bred to, so like in films or TV shows set in olden times, and they'd have, like in the kitchen of a castle, and they'd have a big pig on a spit rotating over a fire. Yeah. Like spinning like that. This dog was bred to basically be in a hamster cage at the end of the spit, constantly running to turn the pig. Yeah. All right. So it was first...
When you said first the words like turnspit and then like in old films, I thought there was going to be like a dog who could do like spit takes on command.
Oh, you're going back to comedy foils here.
Yeah, I guess so. I've got a one-track mind. But hang on. So why would you need a dog when like 40 different hamsters would have done?
I don't know. Maybe they just kept escaping. Have you ever had to try and catch a hamster? They're slippery little bastards.
In what scenario did you... Well, I assume you had hamsters and they escaped.
No, actually. I just assume. I just said it with confidence.
All right, okay, fair enough.
Although I imagine they actually are, because I know people who've had hamsters escape and it took them like a week to find, because obviously they're tiny. They get in like little tiny holes that you just can't.
And they can fly.
Whereas a dog, at least you... This dog isn't going to get like under the floorboards, you'd hope.
True.
Anyway, back on topic. First mentioned in 1576 in the book of English dogs. And they were also known as kitchen dogs, cooking dogs, underdog. Everyone likes an underdog. And the Vernapator, which must be its pretentious Latin name. It was considered to be a lowly dog, and therefore there's actually not much... other records of it, because it was considered too lowly to care about. It wasn't like a fine hunting dog. People think that it might be kind of like a corgi looking dog, because small, basically
explains why the Queen's got them.
Yeah, well, we'll come to that in a bit actually. So because they think it had short legs and quite small, so they could fit in the wheel. And this is where it gets less whimsical. They'd be in this hamsterish cage with like some sort of bait or some, like meat or something hanging just out of reach, so they're constantly running to try and get it. On a wheel, in a hot kitchen, and then that would be connected to like a series of, well, either directly or through like pulleys or whatever, connected to a spit, turning the... Remember though, like, you have to think, in these olden times, life was just shit for most people. So, you know, like, because nowadays we're like, oh, how can you treat a dog like that? Back then, I guess they were like, look, I'm 14 years old, I've got 7 children, and I'm going to die of cholera. Fuck the dog. Like,
I assume the story ends with, like, once the dog is tired, they eat the dog.
Yeah, probably. They were worked to death. Apparently, you'd have teams of them because, you know, they wouldn't last very long, or, you know, get exhausted. They had a shit life, but so did everyone back in those days, I guess, unless you were like a lord. And even then, sometimes you wouldn't. So apparently people were not kind of sad, but the reason why we don't have them anymore is they made automate, you know, in the Industrial Revolution, they automated spits. They basically lost their jobs. Automation comes through us all eventually.
And they didn't have a union to speak of.
Exactly. And so they got rid of them. They were also used in churches as a foot warmer. Apparently that was their like moonlighting job. And there's a story about the Bishop of Gloucester giving a sermon and uttered the line, "It was then that Ezekiel saw the wheel, and at the mention of the word wheel, several of the dogs who were working as foot warmers just ran away because they heard the word wheel and were just like, oh, fuck that." Like, because, you know, normally it's like, into the wheel. Just going back to what you said about the Queen having corgis, apparently Queen Victoria used to keep retired turnspit dogs as pets. Maybe that started a long, proud tradition of the royal family and the monarch keeping short-legged dogs as pets. I don't know.
You don't often see the Queen in like big fluffy socks, so I assume she still keeps her feet toasty that way.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't personally see Her Royal Highness in big fluffy socks, maybe in more intimate settings.
Yeah, to be fair, she's probably not going to go open Parliament in her, like, big fluffy socks. Although I think people might respect her more if she did.
It's like if you go to the shops in your pyjamas, it's not dignified, but you just, like, crawled out of bed and you want to buy rustlers or something. Do you think the Queen's ever had a microwave rustlers?
No. If you think about it, the whole point of things like microwave rustlers are when you can't be asked to make something more hearty. When you have an entire, like, an entire industry of people whose job is solely to look after you. You probably just make something proper.
Yeah, you'd have a burger made from scratch.
On something
do you think she's ever had
very
a
unrelated to the topic, but sort of related to what you just said, I read something about how when, I think it was Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and they had some feast, but it was only for like them and a few other people. Like, it wasn't a lot of people, but they had like 8 roast boars. But the reason why was because the chefs didn't know what time the meal would be, and obviously before they had microwaves and stuff, like, so what they did is they'd start cooking them at different times. So they'd be like, if they start eating at 6 o'clock, the first boar will be ready. But if they're not going to eat till 9, then, you know, the last boar will be at the right cook temperature. So they just had to cook a load of them at like slightly staggered times in the knowledge that one of them would be at the right temperature, the right stage of cooking when it came time to eat. So there you go. Rustlers have saved a lot of boars, is what I'm trying to say.
They can be like, yeah, can we just take the rest to go? And then they come out with a doggy bag with 8 boars.
So yeah, that is the story of the turnspit dog.
It's a sad story, but like you say, contemporaneously, they were at least useful. I feel like non-useful things wouldn't have enjoyed they're indoors at least, you know, they got fed.
Let's go back to what I was saying. Obviously, dogs were... The idea of pets as nothing more than a pet... Because apparently there is evidence and stuff that, like, throughout a lot of human history, people cared for their pets. Like, there's dogs that have been found in, like, I think it was like a Roman era grave, you know, that was clearly like given a burial, not just like dumped. It was like given some sort of marker or something, you know.
Egyptians and cats.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a bit more like religious, wasn't it? But like the idea of just having a pet cat for no reason other than you like to have a cat next to you, like they were always sort of, it was always a transactional thing. Like it was always, you'd look after this. Well, cats, for example, were always... You'd feed the cat, and the cat would eat mice and keep them away from all your stores. But, like, the idea of just having a cat that you just fed and got basically nothing in return but, like, the occasional chance to stroke it is, like, a fairly modern thing. And the same with dogs. Like, having a pet dog that you had to do nothing but look after was like a modern invention. But
Yeah.
the idea of caring about your animal that was also a worker, that's not like new.
And what's also sort of universal throughout history and one of the sort of touchstones of humanity's tenderness throughout the ages is that I think it was an ancient Egyptian burial that proved that, like, we've always given animals cute names because there was like an ancient Egyptian burial where someone who was particularly fond of their cat had like given them a sarcophagus and everything, but it said like, "Here lies socks" or something. I think it was like, or he named his cat Slippers, I think.
Well, isn't it funny, like, when you're calling your cat or pet a name, there's a fine line between, like, too ridiculous, but also too human. Like, you can't call a cat Dave.
No.
I mean, you could, but, like, it would seem ridiculous.
Can't call a guinea pig Keith.
Yeah, it's just weird. But, like,
But
then
if you
some human names
called it
are
slaughterfish, then
yeah, bit much.
it's too silly.
But, like, George somehow works as a dog name and a human name. But,
Yes.
like, Jeff wouldn't. Or maybe it would. I don't know, actually. I could imagine some dogs as a Jeff.
Jeffrey, maybe.
Yeah. I feel like too many syllables as well. You couldn't call a dog Christopher. That would be weird.
No, that sounds too formal, but Chris sounds too familiar for an animal.
dog.
Not too familiar, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fine line.
And it's hard to sort of exactly pinpoint what that line is, but it's like good writing. You know it when you just get an innate feeling.
Just going on about, like, combining all the things we're talking about working animals, names, and powerful people. What I love, one of the things, there's a lot shitty about Britain's politics and stuff like that. We won't get in too much detail, but yeah. Basically, it's all corrupt as fuck. But
Yep.
one thing I do love, to keep the rats at bay, at number 10 Downing Street, there is a cat. At the moment, the cat is called Larry, like the current one, but it also has a title, which is Chief Mouser of the United Kingdom. If you go on its Wikipedia page, it's in the exact same format as, like, other political... so if you go on a politician's Wikipedia page, it has, like, incumbent, and then it has, like, predecessor.
And every post they've had, yeah.
So if you go on that, Chief Mouser of the United Kingdom is there with the incumbent, which is Larry the cat. So there you go, Larry. Human name, but not too human. Like, it's a good one, Larry.
Has it got a signature on there?
Just a paw print.
Yeah.
But also what I love is that, like, because there's no cat flap at number 10 Down Street, presumably for, I imagine, the security issues, you just have a cat flap. But it means that sometimes when you're watching the news, and they'll be doing, there'll be a very serious news thing going on, there'll be some scandal or something, and there'll be, like, BBC reporters stood outside Downing Street doing a live broadcast. And then you'll see a policeman just have to open the door to let the cat back in. There's just some armed policeman stood outside Downing Street, and there's just a cat stood there waiting at the door, and he's like, "All right, go on, in you go."
It's like, I've trained for 12 years in the Met to open the door for a fucking cat.
It's just perfectly whimsical. Honestly, it's my probably my favourite thing about British politics.
It is a rare moment of
Oh, sorry, I got the title wrong. I've just googled it.
Oh right, did you?
It's not Chief Mouser of the United Kingdom. Chief Mouser to the Cabinet Office, which is the
even better.
Yeah, it's got a picture. It's got, like, so when you go on this Wikipedia page, the inaugural holder was Cardinal Wolsey's cat.
Yeah.
Started in 1515. The current holder is Larry. It's got a picture of him with a Union Jack bow tie, but it just looks like one of the politicians, like like when you go on, say, the president's President Biden's Wikipedia page. It's got a picture of Biden there doing, like, here it is, but it's a cat. Current holder Larry, who has a separate Wikipedia page, which is just called Larry brackets cat. It's got the royal coat of arms at the top, like, because then the flag of the United Kingdom, residence, appointer, term length, no set length, ends on retirement or death. And then it turns out, so I just learned this now, that
Scandals
according
and
to a
controversies.
study, voters' perceptions of the Chief Mouser were not completely above partisanship, which means some people look at a cat and go, fucking Tory. Somebody's looked at a cat and gone, Tory scum. It does that. Here we go. I finished. So a study was done, and pictures were shown. A picture of Humphrey, who was the chief mouser appointed by Margaret Thatcher, and then they're told it was either Thatcher's cat or Tony Blair's cat. And Labour voters liked the cat more when they were told it was Blair, and Conservative voters liked the cat more when they were told it was Thatcher. There's also a list of chief mousers here on Wikipedia. So Larry's predecessor was Freya.
Yeah.
Sybil. Each of these cats has its own Wikipedia page separate to its like official tag. In the same way that the US president has its own Wikipedia page, but then Joe Biden, Donald Trump, etc. all have their own. Here, each cat has their own page, and they're also the official one.
Good.
Honestly, I love whimsical seriousness.
Yeah, that's such a great comparison because the role of Chief Mouser has been in existence for way longer than the United States.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When Americans are like, they'll talk about how old, I don't know, bits of New York are, and it's like, mate, we've had an official cat for twice as long as your country has been a thing.
Yeah. Also, sorry, I just wanted to let you know that. So Peter was the cat from 1929 all the way to 1946 and served under 5 prime ministers, but was supplanted. So obviously you could tell things were getting a bit political when he was aided in his duties by the Munich Mouser, who was, and I quote Wikipedia, he served under Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and Winston Churchill.
They had to politicise it, so at the time they even wanted the cat to make it sound like it was hunting Nazi mice.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't have just called it Mike.
So there's other so that's Chief Mouser of the Cabinet Office. It turns out there's also a Chief Mouser of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Whose current incumbent is Palmerston.
Oh, that's a good name for a cat.
Yeah.
What happens next door at the Treasury?
Oh, I don't know. Not
everywhere.
read that much. But apparently they had to do this because... So Palmerston, they had to invent the role of Foreign and Commonwealth Office Chief Mouser because he was brought in to aid Larry the cat, but the two had a falling out and they kept fighting, so they had to create a new post and move him to the Foreign Office.
Larry crossed the floor and joined the other side.
There you go, exactly. It's like a political rivalry. They couldn't just give him up to be rehomed. That would probably be a scandal. So they had to create a new... like when they created a new job, like they make up like Brexit secretary, whatever, and they move people
Brexit
around. So it's like, you're not being fired.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not being fired from being foreign minister. We got you this other shiny job that's just as good. You're not the foreign minister anymore. You're the Brexit minister, which is just as important. They've done the same, but with 2 cats.
Dominic Raab, you get to be Deputy Prime Minister. Oh, good, that sounds really important. What do I do? Nothing. Dominic Raab. Fuck off.
Anyway, I think we've gone wildly off topic, but I've enjoyed it.
I don't care. That was people having a political preference to what government the cat's serving is just so funny to me.
Well, some of them have crossed the
party lines.
Across the floor. Yeah, they've crossed party lines. They've worked for multiple ones. I don't know if that shows that they just go whichever way the wind blows, or does that mean they're like champions of bipartisanship?
They're essentially civil servants. They have to be apolitical.
Yeah, that must be.
It's like the diplomatic service. That was so good. I know it wasn't the topic you were intending to do, but
there we go.
It was so worth it to get there.
All right. Well, with that out of the way, I think it's time to to move to the outro. And with that, we've gone wildly off topic, but kind of on topic. We've had a good time.
Yeah, enjoyably so.
Exactly. It's time to say goodbye. We hope you've enjoyed listening to us. We hope you've learned something. We've certainly learned some things. Not necessarily useful things, but, things. We hope you've laughed as well. We've certainly laughed. Self-indulgent, some might say, but we laughed, and you can't stop us.
Someone finds it funny. You can't take that away from us.
Exactly.
If we make each other laugh.
Well, that's why we do it as a duo rather than single, because at least this way we know that at least one person has found it funny. Just to remind you that if you enjoyed this, please leave a nice review or 5-star review on iTunes. Leave a nice comment, or if you're watching this on YouTube, please share this with your friends, because it's the best way to help us grow is just word of mouth. Tell people, share it, point them towards us. Follow us on Twitter at Cooking with Grief, no G on cooking. Send us an email, cookingwithgrief@gmail.com. A lot of G's in that. Get in touch. We always like to hear from listeners. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that about
covers it, doesn't it? Yeah. No, so I would say just get in touch, share with your friends, leave nice reviews. If you do go on the Twitter, follow us, retweet stuff. It's always nice to just help the channel grow a bit. We accept that we're probably not going to be competing with Joe Rogan for the next $100 million Spotify contract. Because that's the thing, when podcasting first sort of started, there were like people started these indie podcasts that then ended up taking off and becoming dead famous. Whereas now, if you want to become a Spotify exclusive and, Spotify are looking at who they're going to give their next contract to, they're going to look and be like, well, there's this really popular podcast. I'm not talking about us in this situation, obviously. They'll be like, there's this really popular podcast, or there's Idris Elba, Beyonce, Prince Harry, and like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan being arguably one of the former ones I guess he was already a TV presenter and stuff. Yeah, we accept that we're probably not going to be retiring off all this sweet podcast revenue, which currently stands at 0. But we would like to share basically we just like to share this with as many people as we can. So
yeah,
more
it'd be
people
nice
listen, the better.
And enough that like me and Chris could go for a modest lunch on the back of this podcast, and we would tell you about it in the outro of a subsequent episode.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you can, because we've got a Patreon as well.
We do.
For which you will receive nothing extra. But maybe if we start earning enough,
lots of gratitude.
Yeah, gratitude and sort of psychic love. But yeah, if we could afford like a couple of burritos.
Oh yeah, we do love a burrito.
Everything you need, nothing you don't.
Exactly. And in a handy wrap, so you don't need cutlery.
Yeah, because if there's one thing Cooking with Grief will not tolerate, it is
cutlery.
It's silverware.
And on that note, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye, America.
Slower.
Goodbye, America.
No, you must end the podcast like your very life depends on it.
Goodbye, America.
That will have to do.
Yes, we can.
Cook with Grief.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Did you know that a man once jumped into a bulletproof window so much that he busted it out of the frame and fell to his death? I do. Hey, I'm Nicholas Howe, and I made an improvised comedy storytelling podcast about this death and many others. Using a multiverse of me's as the catalyst, I explore the various ways people have died. I also have special guests on and freak them out about how dangerous the world is. Did you know lakes can explode? You do now. Listen to the How Will I Die podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter at HWIDIEPOD.